a perspective of entrepreneurship.
Hi everyone, welcome to our discussion on entrepreneurial management. By the way, I am Laika Jansino, your first discussant for today's video entitled A Perspective of Entrepreneurship. But before we dive into each topic, let us first get to know what really an entrepreneur is. Entrepreneur is basically defined as those people who take action to create something new. It may be a new idea, item or product, new institution, or new set of possibilities. Whereas entrepreneurship refers to a discipline that seeks to understand how opportunities are discovered, created, and exploited by whom and with what consequences. Entrepreneurship is one of the economic resources that combines the other factors of production. Basically, the factors of production are referred to as the resources people use to produce goods and services. Economists consider this as the building blocks of the economy. Actually, the factors of production have four categories. The first one is the land, which includes any natural resources. It can be either renewable or non-renewable. Next, the effort that humans contribute is called labor. And then, think of the capital as the machinery, tools, and buildings. And lastly, the entrepreneurship, which combines the land, labor, and capital in new ways. Entrepreneurship promotes innovation. Through the right practices of research and development, entrepreneurs bring new innovation that opens the door of new ventures, markets, products, and technology. And by the way, innovation is defined as the introduction of a new method, procedure, custom, device, among others. And now, let's proceed to the 7 types of entrepreneurship in practice today. Corporate entrepreneurship, also known as intrapreneurship, is a process of creating new products, ventures, processes, or renewal within large organizations. It is typically carried out by employees working in units separate from the organization who create and test innovations that are then assimilated back inside the broader organizations. Corporate entrepreneurs tend to explore new possibilities and seek ways in which the organization's current structure and process can enable innovation. Similar to external entrepreneurs, corporate entrepreneurs identify opportunities, build teams, and create something of value in order to enhance competitive position and organizational profitability. Entrepreneurs inside consist of employees who think and act entrepreneurially within organizations. Although these sound similar to corporate entrepreneurs, there is an important difference. Entrepreneurs inside can exist and function in any type of organization, big or small, including government agencies, non-profits, religious entities, self-organizing entities, and cooperatives. These types of entrepreneurs often need to gain inside support from senior managers or other team members for their initiatives, which can be difficult if those people tend to resist new ideas or are keen to simply stick to the company brief rather than pushing boundaries. Building a tribe of willing supporters is essential for getting buy-in to their ideas and proving there is a market for them. Buying a franchise. A franchise is a type of license purchased by an entrepreneur, which is called franchisee, from an existing business, which is called franchisor, that allows the entrepreneur to trade under the name of that business. Franchising can be a beneficial way for entrepreneurs to get a head start in launching their own businesses, as they do not have to spend the same amount of time on marketing, building the brand, developing processes, and sourcing product. Buying a small business is another way to enter the world of entrepreneurship. In this arrangement, the entrepreneur is buying out the existing owner and taking over operations. For some entrepreneurs, this is a less risky approach than starting from scratch. Since the beginning of the 21st century, social entrepreneurship has become a global movement with thousands of initiatives being launched every year to improve social problems in areas such as water shortages, education, poverty, and global warming. There has been considerable debate as to how to define social entrepreneurship. Some argue that all types of entrepreneurship are social, while others define it as purely an activity of the nonprofit sector. These blurred lines imply that entrepreneurs are forced to choose between making a social or an economic impact. We contend that social entrepreneurs can do both. It is possible to address a social issue and make a profit. Keeping a company economically stable ensures its capability to consistently meet the needs of its customers without relying on fundraising or other methods to keep it afloat. We therefore define social entrepreneurship as the process of sourcing innovative solutions to social and environmental problems. Family enterprising. A family enterprise is a business that is owned and managed by multiple family members, typically for more than one generation. What makes family enterprising part of the portfolio of entrepreneurship types is that each generation has an opportunity to bring the organization forward in new, innovative ways. Serial entrepreneurs, also known as habitual entrepreneurs, are people who start several businesses, whether simultaneously or one after another. Not satisfied with just focusing on one business, serial entrepreneurs are constantly looking out for the next big thing or exploring ways to implement their diverse range of ideas. Have you ever wondered why so many things seem to be harder and take longer to accomplish than you would like, and why both things seem to be increasing? We may not have an answer in every case, but let me tell you an explanation that probably covers a majority of situations. The way we have been taught to solve problems was designed for a different world. To deal with uncertainty today, we need a different approach. And that is one of the reasons why we need to know the two main perspectives of entrepreneurship. The fact that there are two main perspectives on entrepreneurship challenges us to rethink what entrepreneurship really means. It is no longer about a path of starting and growing a venture using a linear step-by-step process. Instead, it is a much messier, ongoing practice of creating opportunities, taking smart action, learning, and iterating to navigate an ever-changing world. The two perspectives that we will be discussing in this part represent the older view and the newer view in entrepreneurship. We can view these perspectives as different logics or ways of thinking about entrepreneurship. The older view sees entrepreneurship as a linear process in which steps are followed and outcomes are ideally predictable. For this reason, it is sometimes called the predictive logic. In contrast to it, the newer view sees entrepreneurship as we do as a mindset and a method that requires practice. Recent advances in the field have termed this the creation logic. Whereas predictive thinking is used in situations of certainty, the creation logic is used when situations are more unpredictable and uncertain. With a predictive approach, entrepreneurs determine the goals they need to achieve and look for the resources to enable them to reach their goals. Entrepreneurs who use the creation approach turn this thinking upside down. They determine their goals according to whatever resources they have at hand. They use what they have rather than wait for extended periods of time to get what they need before taking action. Prediction works best in times of certainty and when there is access to existing information and data on which to base decisions. Prediction is the dominant logic of large established organizations where goals are predetermined, issues are transparent, and information is reliable and accessible. Under these circumstances, it is relatively straightforward to analyze a situation, define problems and opportunities, and diagnose and find solutions. Big organizations can use sophisticated planning tools to analyze past and present data in order to predict any shift in business landscape. On the other hand, traditional entrepreneurship theory is underpinned by the prediction view. I can control the future if I can predict it. Someone who uses prediction as a specific goal to work toward, together with a given set of means for reaching it. In reality, entrepreneurs should and do employ both perspectives. But in general, we are expert predictors because we have been honing these skills for years. We were expert creators when we were babies, at a time when everything around us was a mystery and uncertain. The only way we learned as a baby was by trial and error. Traditional education, the need to find the correct answer, and the constant need for measurement and assessment has inhibited our creative nature. Whenever using the creation logic, just remember that we were all born with the ability. An early entrepreneurial venture is unlikely to have access to sophisticated predictive tools, nor is it just a smaller version of a large organization. While prediction has its advantages, it is not enough in today's uncertain, complex, and chaotic business environment. Ideally, new ventures need to be able to balance both prediction and creation in order to function. Further, they need to also understand under what conditions to use this approach. Small enterprises will almost always begin with creation, but as they collect data in the real world, they will use prediction for analysis. The majority of entrepreneurs are more likely to start out with a general idea that they feel is worth pursuing, rather than to create a concrete plan with a formulated strategy. The early stages of entrepreneurship emphasize creation over prediction, given the reality of what it's really like to start a business. You simply can't predict. After all, how is it possible to price a product or service when the market does not exist? Or hire the right people for a business that hasn't yet begun to figure out who the customer is or the size of the market? Or determine the worth of a company in an industry that has only emerged very recently? It is usually possible to access some useful data, but if you are working on a truly novel idea, you must get out of the building and collect your own data. You must take action.
The 5 skills most important to the practice of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs that use creation method learn via action and handle uncertainty by concentrating on developing important skills. It teaches entrepreneurs how to work smarter, quicker, and to make decisions based on reality rather than assumptions. What are those skills? First, there is the skill of play, which frees our imagination, opens up our mind to a world of more opportunities and possibilities, and help us to be more innovative as entrepreneurs. Aren't we feel more interested, engaged, and more energized when having fun and being playful? So why shouldn't entrepreneurship be fun? Play can increase overall mood and productivity level. Entrepreneurs benefit from creative exercises that encourage interaction with others, problem solving, idea generation, learning from trial and error, and so on. In the context of entrepreneurship, play can include the use of serious games such as educational games like alternative reality games and learning simulations to challenge you to be creative and to think like an entrepreneur. Second is the skill of experimentation, which is best described as acting in order to learn. It means attempting to do something, learning from those attempts, and structuring those learnings when it happens again. In the context of entrepreneurship, experimentation means taking action, such as getting out of the building and gathering real-world data to test new concepts rather than sitting and searching data from the latest research. It involves asking questions, validating assumptions, and not taking anything for granted. For example, suppose you have created a new energy drink but aren't sure how much to price it. By spending weeks on researching the energy drink market and investing your competitors to determine how much you should charge your own product, you may be able to get the idea of the average price of your product, but this will only be a general guideline. Alternatively, you could bring samples of your drink and sell them at various prices based on what you have learned during your research. By acting and bringing the product directly to the customers, you can obtain not only the price but also the customer's feedback and how much they like the product. Next is the skill of empathy. It is the ability to understand emotions, circumstances, intentions, thoughts, and the needs of others. So it is basically putting one's shoes in the shoes of others. Why do you think it is important in entrepreneurship? Well, developing empathy is essential for truly understanding the reality of being an entrepreneur, as well as evaluating your own ability to become an entrepreneur. For example, is when you are conducting interview with practicing entrepreneurs. It allows you to develop empathy for what they have gone through and to put yourselves in their shoes to imagine what would you do in the same situation. Furthermore, empathy allows you to connect with potential stakeholders in a more meaningful way, which could help to identify unmet needs, leading to creation of new products and services. Then we have the skill of creativity. This skill involves being open-minded and letting loose one's ability to create and discover opportunities and resolve problems. But how do you create opportunities? It all depends on how much you want to learn, how much interested you are, and how much effort you have to invest to your idea. We may all have ideas, but remember, ideas could only be great once executed and tested. Lastly is the skill of reflection, which helps make sense of all other actions required of play, empathy, creativity, and experimentation. You may not realize it, but taking the time out to reflect is also an action, and it can be the most important of all the 5 skills, because reflections allows us for self-awareness to help us analyze our work, evaluate results, draw conclusions, and open our minds to new ideas. It is a way to identify areas where we need to change and improve, and recognize places where we've grown and keep us moving forward to achieve our growth goals. There are different types of reflection, and let's further explore it by imagining that you have given a presentation of your new energy drink to a small retail outlet. Following the presentation, you make time to reflect on the experience. First, for narrative reflection, which is about looking back or recounting what happened, you can describe what happened by considering what took place, what was said, and who was involved. Second, you could use emotional reflection to focus on how you felt during the presentation, like nervousness, anxiety, etc., etc., and how you manage those emotions. Third, you could adapt analytical reflection to analyze the situation by thinking about the skills and knowledge you've gained from the experience, and if anything you have learned relates to anything you have heard about before. Furthermore, you could evaluate the experience by focusing on what went well and what seems to go badly, and if the experience was positive or negative, useful or helpful. Finally, you could practice critical reflection by considering the part you played in the presentation and the approach you took, what else you might have done, what you have learned about the experience, what questions you have, and what you might consider as a result. The 5 skills that was discussed are essential for building a mindset for the practice of entrepreneurship. They are designed for those who are keen to take action. This is because the skills cannot be developed without learning through doing. So, taking action first is the biggest part of getting the ideas off the ground. Now, let's proceed to our next topic, which is the two approach of entrepreneurship and why entrepreneurship is more a method than a process. Entrepreneurship as a process is the means of identifying an opportunity, understanding resource requirements, acquiring resources, planning, implementing, and harvesting. So this approach is based on planning and prediction, from firm creation right up until the firm exit or harvesting. The word process assumes known inputs and known outputs, as in manufacturing process. It implies that you will get to a specific destination. For example, building a car on an assembly line is a manufacturing process. You know all the parts, you know how they fit together, and you know the type of car you will get at the end. A process is quite predictable. This approach suggests that if you follow the 10 steps correctly, your new venture is more likely to succeed. The step includes Step 1, think of an idea. Step 2, do market research. Step 3, get some financial projection. Step 4, find a partner or team. Step 5, write a business plan. Step 6, get financing. Step 7, find space, build a prototype, and hire people. Step 8, bring your product or services to market. Step 9, manage the business. And step 10 is plan and exit. This process of entrepreneurship works for larger organizations and corporations. But entrepreneurial ventures are not just smaller versions of large corporations. The 10-step process isn't enough for entrepreneurial ventures. Why? Because it relies too much on past history to predict the future, and a new venture with new innovation does not have any history to draw from. And simply stated, there are no steps or rules. It's just not that clean. On the other hand, the method or practice approach represents a body of skills that, when developed through practice over time, constitute a toolkit for entrepreneurial action. It caters to uncertainty and unpredictability of entrepreneurship. That's why it requires consistent practice so knowledge and expertise can be continuously developed and applied to future endeavors. Part of the method is learning as you go, and part of it is iterative. The entire method, however, is action-based and, of course, requires practice. Let's take a look at this table for the comparison of two approaches: entrepreneurship as a process and entrepreneurship as a method. As a process, it has steps to complete. As mentioned earlier, there are 10 steps. First, think of an idea. Second, do market research. Third, get some financial projection. Fourth, find a partner or team. Fifth, write a business plan. 6. Get financing. 7. Find space, build a prototype, and hire people. 8. Bring your product or services to market. 9. Manage your business. And 10. Plan and exit. However, as a method, it has phases of learning. It's because it's about building a level of mastery over the very process of entrepreneurship, over your ability to plan, but remain open to serendipity, to act without perfect information, to read social dynamics and move people, to harness resources, things and ways others don't see things. Some of this comes naturally to some people. Most, if not all, are trainable over time, if you are willing to invest the effort. Next, entrepreneurship as a process is linear. A linear process which steps are followed and outcomes are ideally predictable. Entrepreneurship as a linear process involves identifying an opportunity, understanding resource requirements, acquiring resources, planning, implementing, and harvesting or exiting a business. Whereas, in method approach, it is iterative because It is designed for an unpredictable environment. It uses iterative process, which is like a trial and error. It is the practice of building, refining, and improving a project, product, or initiative. For instance, in iterative development process, entrepreneurs create, test, and revise until they are satisfied with the end result. Next, as a process, it is predictive because it is used in situation of certainty. It's like waiting until you get what you need. While in method, it is creative because it is used in unpredictable situation. It's like starting or acting with what you have. As a process, it is also planning focus to the extent that we can predict future so we can control it. So the inputs are known and the outputs are predicted. That's why it involves big planning and forecasting from the start to end result. While in method, it is action focused to the extent that we can create future so we don't need to predict it. That's why it requires continuous practice with focus on doing and learning. Lastly, in process approach, there is an expected return. That's why they forecast to avoid failure at all costs. Whereas in method, there is an investment for learning. There is an acceptability for possible loss because it looks on the lessons and takeaways from the failed business, lowering the risk of failure on his or her new ventures. And an entrepreneur can view a business that didn't work out as a sign that he or she is not a failed entrepreneur, but rather an experienced one. To wrap it all up, the 5 skills of play, empathy, creativity, experimentation, and reflection support the development of different parts of our entrepreneurial selves. The method of entrepreneurship outlines the tools and practices necessary to take action. Entrepreneurship as a process instead guides would-be creators along a throughout but static path from inception to exit.
Hello, I am Jonaway Bonita, your last discussant, and I will be discussing the introduction of the practice of entrepreneurship and the concept of deliberate practice. Now that we understand the difference between the method and process of entrepreneurship, it's time to take a deeper dive into the 8 components of the practice of entrepreneurship. First component is identify your desired impact on the world. Second, start with means at hand. Third, describe the idea today. Fourth, calculate affordable loss. Fifth, take small action. 6. Network and enroll others in your journey. 7. Build on what you learn. Lastly, reflect and be honest with yourself. Number 1 component is identify your desired impact on the world. It is a simple statement that connects to your curiosity, drive, and motivation. We all know that to be successful in creating a business, the strategy, product, or anything related to business, it is said that a strong desire is one of the most important ingredients to be successful. A success that is not only for the business, but also for ourselves. Why? Because entrepreneurship is not only about money or the income generated by the business. If we pay attention, the rapid growth of companies is primarily concerned with wealth creation. But the general reasons why people start businesses go much deeper. Some pursue what they love, others value their autonomy and ability to control their work experience, and others have a strong desire to bring something new to the market, or what we call innovation. The profit motives is simply not sustainable in the long run because entrepreneurship is hard work and requires satisfaction and desire that is derived from deep within. Number 2 component, start with means at hand. And the second component, the questions, who am I? What do I know? Whom do I know? Are answered here because these are the 3 categories of methods that can be used to be efficient in decision making. When there is an answer to these questions, this will serve as a way for us to better understand our current resource base and the resources that are available that we can use for immediate action. Let's say, for example, the entrepreneur adjusts his goals to his available means, which gives him the incomparable advantage of being receptive to opportunities and flexible to change course. Number 3, describe the idea today. What can you start to do today with what you have today? And this third component, the idea is identified by connecting your means to your impact statement. So, what is impact statement? An impact statement is not an idea. It is a statement that expresses your desire for the type of impact you want to make as an entrepreneur. Like, what are you curious about? What brings you joy and energy? And what motives and engages you? Next is calculate affordable loss. Leaving one's comfort zone is always perceived as risky, but the risk is relative. We all know that each one of us has a different approach to risk. For me, the loan of the product to the supplier is a high risk, but for you, it is not. Why? Because it is an opportunity. As a result, calculating risk and applying it as a valid decision-making criterion can be difficult. Instead of calculating risk, consider taking action in terms of how much you are willing to lose. What are you willing to sacrifice in terms of money, reputation, time, and opportunity costs? By responding to these questions, you take initiative rather than allowing risk or failure to govern you. Number 5 component, take small action, nothing drastic. The first action is just a small start to get you going. No excuses here. No excuses here because you must put in your mind that you can do it. No matter what happens, you can still do it. Because once you can calculate your affordable loss, you can control all the risks that will come to you, especially in your business. Number 6, network and enroll others in your journey. Sharing your ideas and enrolling others in your journey will increase your resource base, expand the possibilities available, and validate your idea. Do you agree with this? Of course, yes, because the practice of entrepreneurship is about collaboration and co-creation rather than competition. Number 7, build on what you learn. Assess the performance of your action. We must keep in mind that assessment is not about killing our new idea because it's about making the idea better. There is no right or wrong answer at this stage, but don't forget to be better. Expect and embrace setbacks and celebrate the learning. As Thomas Watson once said about the key to success, increase the rate of failure because we all know that the longer we are exposed to failure, the more the results of our actions become better since all failures have associated learning. Lastly, reflect and be honest with yourself. One question always arises, how do I know when I should stop or keep going? The answer to this question is easy. Quit only if you no longer have the desire inherent in your impact statement or if you have exceeded your affordable loss. Otherwise, the real question you have to answer now is, what are you going to do next? The Vera Bradley bags and backpacks are the best example for us to better understand the 8 components of the practice of entrepreneurship. So, what are Vera Bradley's bags and backpacks? It all started with business partners named Barbara Beckgard and Pat Miller. They were at an airport en route to a birthday celebration when they spotted something that didn't seem quite right. Many passengers were carrying cheap bags and luggage. Beckgard was struck by the lack of attractive bags for women and decided to investigate. It turns out there were more attractively designed bags available, but they were targeted at the high end of the market and came with a costly price tag. Backyard and Miller wondered if they could produce a practical bag at a lower price for a wider market. As soon as they returned home from the trip, they bought fabrics of many different patterns and colors and began to experiment with the design. They then hired someone to make 12 prototype bags. Now, all they needed was a brand name. After some consideration, they decided to use Backyard's mother's name, Vera Bradley. They sold all 12 bags at a local trunk show and customers were asking for more. However, the trunk show customers were mostly middle-aged or older women, and Backyard and Miller wanted to see if their bags would appeal to a younger market. So since Backyard had two daughters in college in different states, she sent them each several bags to see what their friends thought of them. Both daughters provided very positive feedback from each campus. This informal market research convinced Backyard and Miller to take the next step. They each borrowed $250 from their husbands to make more bags. And then, the partners decided to try their luck at the Chicago Gift Show, where they sold $10,000 worth of bags. Delighted with their success, they decided to look for more financing to produce more products. But they weren't sure how to go about it. In the end, the money came from a rather unexpected source. They found a bank manager they could trust, sought advice from a retired financial executive, built relationships with fabric wholesalers, and hired people in the community to sew the bags. Armed with the mantra, first sell yourself and then your company. Lastly, your product. The two partners each worked to build relationships with relevant businesses. They would simply walk into local gift shops, introduce themselves, show samples, and ask if the gift shops wanted to order any of the bags. They also asked friends and family to represent the Vera Bradley brand in different home states and to reach out, in turn, to their contacts. In every location, this involved developing relationships with local gift stores and taking orders for the bags. The 3 R's challenge. So, why did this activity become a challenge? In R number 1, you must write down your impact statement. Keep in mind that this is something that drives your curiosity, motivation to engage, and enthusiasm. As I mentioned earlier, an impact statement is not an idea. One example of this is having the desire to design clothes that help teenagers feel more confident. Take a full hour to write down your impact statement. Give it deep thought and ask yourself, what excites me? Write it as clearly, sincerely, and completely as you can. R number 2, share. Share your impact statement with your classmates or others in your life and try to find someone who shares a similar vision. The goal here is to find just one other person with a similar vision to you. But if you can find more than one, much better. R number 3, schedule. It is connected to R number 2. Are you wondering why? Once you find your person, the best thing to do is make a 1-hour meeting. When it comes to the meeting place, find some place unusual, not in the same coffee shop or restaurant where you always go, and share where your desired impact is coming from. And identify 3 potential business ideas that the two of you could pursue together to fulfill your desired impact. For example, If you both have a desire for healthy snack food, you may come up with an idea around healthy vending machines that hold only fresh fruit and vegetable options. Another example is when both of you are interested in beauty products, then go to the place that has a lot of products that you will both enjoy. Deliberate practice. Sustained effort, concentration, and focus have important cognitive benefits such as enhancing perception, memory, intuition, and how we understand our performance, or metacognition. Expert entrepreneurs who engage in the deliberate practice are generally more skilled at perceiving situations, understanding the meaning of complex patterns, and recognizing the differences between relevant and irrelevant information. To sum it up, the practice of entrepreneurship is designed so entrepreneurs can embrace and confront uncertainty rather than avoid it. The 8 components include the following. Identify your desired impact on the world. Start with means at hand. Describe the idea today. Calculate affordable loss. Take small action. Network and enroll others in your journey. Build on what you learn. And reflect and be honest with yourself. And also, practice doesn't make perfect. Rather, deliberate practice makes perfect. Starting with specific goals, deliberate practice involves consistent, targeted efforts for improvement. Feedback and self-reflection are necessary for meaningful improvement, and repetition is required to achieve lasting results. That's all our report. God bless and thank you for your time.